Yo, welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. As always, I am your coach. I'm supposed to say I'm your host. All right, let's start that over. Good? Yo, welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. As always, I am your host, Coach Myers, and the Wrestling Strength Podcast is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Make sure to go to maxeffortmuscle.com for all of your supplement needs. All right. So for today, I have a very special guest, a great friend of mine, former, co-coach, co-worker type of guy I've been around, spent a lot of time with, and this is a guy that has an incredible resume as an athlete, competitor, and as a coach, and is one of the most well-respected guys in the sport. My man, Ross Thatcher. What's up, Ross?
Not a whole lot. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to come all the way out here to Granville, Ohio, spend some time with us today. Now, there's a lot of things I kind of want to, for us to touch on today. But, with you, former coach at Penn State, Oklahoma, you were at Ohio State the entire time that I was there, through the RTC, working with the athletes. You were the upper weight coach there. You also kind of helped run the RTC. So you've been in some very high-profile programs over the years. I want to hear, and I know a little bit about it, but I want to hear what you got going on right now. Tell me what Ross Thatcher is doing right now.
Yeah, so I have a club called the Ohio Crazy Goats, and I also help out with Bishop Watterson at all levels from their K through 12 program. My Crazy Goat program is kids that come from all over Ohio. We run it 12 months out of the year. Jimmy Edwards helps me out. And I'd say the difference between the two, I feel like we're the same club, the Ohio Crazy Goats and the Watterson. The difference between the two is the Goats come from all over Ohio, and the Watterson kids are the kids that are going to school together in that community, going to church together. So, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
So I would say it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the Crazy Goats, which you started a few years ago, has kind of become the feeder for the Watterson program, which has been resurrected.
Yes and no. In Central Ohio, the Catholic diocese, you have to live in a certain area to be able to go to Watterson. I would say where the Goats have helped Watterson out more is the Watterson kids are getting more workout partners throughout the year, and while they're growing and learning the sport outside from their community. I would love if some of my Goats who lived in the Watterson school district, who practice with the Watterson kids, end up going to Watterson. But I'll never push that. It's the Watterson thing is like, we're growing up, we're going to school together, we're going to church together, we're going to wrestle in high school together.
I mean, what an opportunity for kids in that area to be able to not just, grow up and compete together and then hopefully end up in high school together, but also to have, elite coaching with you and Jimmy along the way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jimmy a little bit. Jimmy Edwards is one of those guys. I don't even know if I've ever met Jimmy personally. I know a lot about him. I know he's been around Central Ohio wrestling forever. Now, was he your coach when you were coming up? Let's talk a little bit about him.
So Mickey Ballmer was my head high school coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was probably a freshman or sophomore when this older gentleman walked into our wrestling room and grabbed me and started beating me up. And about 3 weeks in, I went to my dad and I said, "Hey, this guy's trying to hurt me." Like I legit thought he was trying to hurt me. I was young and immature.
Right.
And he told me to suck it up. And next thing you know, I'm 45 years old. He's in his young 60s, and we're best friends. Jimmy, you've met Jimmy. We actually went to your old facility together and out at the golf outings and all that. But Jimmy and I had a special relationship. He was a lot like you. He led by example. He wasn't just saying, "Hey, go do this." He was doing it right alongside. And I think there's a certain level of respect you get when you're a young athlete, and you see that your leader is doing it with you. He's a good man. He was an All American at LSU back when LSU had wrestling. He was the captain of the team. He grew up on the west side of Columbus, went to Westland High School. Huge impact in my life. I was extremely lucky of I mean, we're all biased. I think I have one of the greatest dads ever, and my mom, and they drove everything. I had Tom Rowland Sr., who was like my second father. And when you already have a great dad, to be able to call someone a second father is like, wow, how lucky are you?
Right.
And
because most people don't even get one great one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I had 3 older brothers who went out of the way to help me get to where I wanted to go. So it was just boom, boom, boom. Very, very fortunate. And then Jimmy comes in. And I think that's where I kind of learned how to fight in the sport of wrestling. Because when you're 15 years old and you got a grown man coming in and you think he's trying to pop your shoulder out of the socket, and everyone around you saying, hey, you got to fight. You got to fight back. Either your shoulder pops, well, he's never going to pop my shoulder out, but you think he's going to. Either that's going to happen or you start fighting back. And he made me like realize there was more to give than what I thought. So, and then he also raised Tommy, little Tommy or big Tommy, but they lived in the same neighborhood, and he started off going down to Jimmy's basement and
I've heard so many
weightlifting.
I've heard so many Central Ohio wrestlers over the years. They'll have some sort of say, well, yeah, you know, that one summer when I was going to Jimmy Edwards' basement, like that was like kind of the summer that changed everything for me. And then, you know, going all the way back to you and Tommy, up to, you know, Jaden Maddox, you know, some of these guys I've worked with over the years, they have all mentioned that at one time, to where I kind of almost look at Jimmy as one of those like unsung heroes of Central Ohio wrestling.
One of the best there is.
You know, so he's never had like this, you know, like say Miran or someone where it's like a high profile club that everyone knows about. It's almost kind of like one of those like best kept secrets.
Yep.
But it's been a very common thread I've heard from so many kids over the years of like, yeah, you know, that time I spent in Jimmy Edwards' basement, that was a game changer.
Yeah. He's, I remember when I came back, I forget what year it was, but he just likes helping people, and he was doing everything for free, and he couldn't get consistency. And I kept telling him, like, listen, you can provide a service and charge and still help people. And he finally started charging, and then he couldn't keep people out of his basement.
Well, I'd say once you start charging, then the parents feel a different commitment.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me.
You would think if you're donating your time for free, that people would value it more.
And they don't.
They value it more if they have to pay for it, which is odd, really.
I have found I am really big into loyalty. And if I help one of your family members, I think I'd hope there's some kind of loyalty there. The families that I help out a lot, this is where I'm really bad at business, is...
I'm gonna say this is where you're good at business, but anyway, go ahead. Okay. Keep going.
So I have a lot of families that don't have the financial resources to pay to be in a club like mine. And I don't hesitate. Like, hey, your kid wants to wrestle, you don't have to just bring them. Those are the families that end up leaving. No matter how much time you give them, no matter, it's like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, that's odd, because you would think, you know, when you show that loyalty and you help someone, that you're going to get that loyalty in return. And that's unfortunate that it's not always that way.
Yeah.
But
Jimmy's awesome. Back to Jimmy. I think Jimmy's one of the best coaches out there, not just with being able to show wrestling, but on the mental side of things. Mm-hmm. He is a genius. He would be able to have one conversation with you and be able to push whatever buttons needed to motivate you best. I've seen kids go to him and say, I'm done with wrestling. I hate this sport. Like, I'm through with it. And within 45 minutes, they're working out the next day.
He can get them to buy in.
He's a Jedi master.
Well, I think that's a talent as a coach for sure.
Yeah.
That it's not always about the X's and O's. You have to get someone else to believe.
Yeah.
I've told parents that before. I said, look, there's trainers out there, there's strength coaches out there that are way more book smart than I am, that may be stronger than I am. They got bigger muscles, all these different things when you think of a strength coach. But what I can do is that you bring me your kid, I can get them to want to work hard.
Yes.
I'm not going to just bark at them and like be a drill sergeant, because when they leave here, then that's not going to do them any good.
Right.
But I can get them to believe in themselves and to want to work. And that's really my talent as a coach. And that sounds very similar to what you're saying about Jimmy Edwards.
Yeah. You guys are actually a lot alike.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. We're going to have to bring him out next time. I'd love to have him on an episode. But let's talk about Tommy a little bit. You mentioned, Tom Sr. Now, Tommy, how many grades behind you was he in high school?
So when I was a freshman at Penn State, he was a freshman at Bishop Ready.
Okay, so when you would have been at Bishop Ready in high school, which you had a great career in high school, he would have been like in the youth program at that time, kind of coming up. So talk about maybe your role as kind of that big brother to him way back in the day.
Yeah, so I remember we were at a high school meet and I got introduced to Big Tom, and they introduced Little Tommy to me, and he came. I think Big Tom did some coaching at Newark Catholic for a 4-time state champ Kenny Ramsey, who was an Ohio State coach, and just being in the same community, we went to the same school. Just started working. He was like my little brother. And he was just a hard-nosed kid that liked wrestling. And I think we started getting close where I remember my dad was a police officer. His dad was running a company and big in sales. And there were times when my dad had to work a weekend shift, and his dad put us all in a van and drove us to a tournament. And then there'd be another weekend where his dad had to be away on business. So my dad would take us to a tournament. And we just kind of grew up in the wrestling circles, and got closer and closer and closer. So
when you look at how intertwined you guys were, then at an early age, and you got to think, so you were an 84-pounder in college, right?
I was, 71, then it moved to 77, then 84, and then my last year, 197.
So either way, your freshman year in college, you're an upper weight.
Yep.
Tommy was not the heavyweight NCAA champion that we know now. As a freshman in high school, he would have been, he was like a 125 or something, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So he was really legitimately your little brother.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe someone who's listening to this that might not understand the context, they picture you and Tommy are both big guys.
Yeah.
They probably picture two heavyweights in there scrapping, whereas he was really a little kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you were his big brother in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
So you think about, just kind of how serendipitous or how lucky you are in life for, your families to be intertwined like at an early age. Who would ever think then this many years later now you're coaching his son?
Yeah.
You're coaching Tommy the third, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about kind of the feelings of that, of getting to, work with his son, and then maybe, you and Tommy getting to interact, on that kind of basis as, coaches together as, the parent-coach relationship.
Yeah, so I think it started when I came back or when I got out of Ohio State and wanted to start coaching young kids. I started thinking about the people that helped me and what it meant to me and what it provided for my future. And I made a commitment right then and there that I was going to try to give back to the people that helped me. Jim Edwards was number one. Tom Rowland Sr. was the very next person I thought of. I was like, how can I give back to him? And it's like, I'm going to help his grandchildren, which made it super simple because Tommy and I are pretty close friends. I want to help his sons too. So any of Tom Sr.'s grandkids, I've told all their parents, and there's 20 of them, I think, like they don't ever have to pay for one thing, anything they ever need, ask. So I think that was the original motivation. And now they're all into it and they're all getting good. It's twice as much fun.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the different ones, like they're finally starting to stake their own claim in the sport, where it's like they're wanting to do it because they like it. So it's probably selfish that I get to make myself feel good by giving back to them, but they gave so much to me. So
well, I think you hit on something there. It's part of it is the giving back to them, but also too, the way you can enjoy your profession, your job is a different level than when you're working with anyone else. And I would say, something very, very similar situation is with Corey and I. And we talked a little bit about this off air before we started today. Corey and I grew up together, lifting weights together in my dad's garage and in high school before we could even drive. We've been business partners, for 20 years basically. And now we're to the point where my son and his youngest son are workout partners.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So they come in, I work with them on Wednesday afternoon. So today I'll pick up Jack from school and I'll train them tonight. And then Corey trains them on Sundays. And so to see them not just grow up in the gym, but they're growing up in the gym together as workout partners. And for me to get to like, I kind of explained to Corey, you know, I've always called myself like an uncle to his kids, or,
Right.
you know, his kids will say Uncle Dustin. But in reality, like it's almost just kind of a title because we're best friends. I never really got to have an impact on his kids like I am now. Now with Andon, I said, even though it's only one day a week, I'm going to have a hand in raising Andon.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I'm going to be able to have an impact as a family member really would, and that I get to deal with him and kind of help shape and mold him. And he gets to do the same for Jack. So there's a level of enjoyment, just like with you with Tommy's kids. You're not just Uncle Ross that comes around on holidays and you see him once in a while because you're Tommy's best friend. You're going to help raise his kids now in a way. So the level of fulfillment and enjoyment I think you get as a man, as an individual, is so different than you can get in any other area of business.
Yeah.
It's really unique.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, that's what keeps waking us up, but it's just helping. It's helping other people. And where you and I are similar is, you know, it's about other people. And that is a blast. I have so many kids, not just the Rollins family's kids that you're asking about, but so many of my Crazy Goat kids and so many of the Watterson kids, to where it's like you feel a responsibility. You try to help them so much. You feel that responsibility to where it's not just showing up at this time and teaching a couple moves and leaving. It's
right.
I got a responsibility for them to have success on the wrestling mat, and that's on the lowest spectrum, the lowest tier of what I feel responsible for. It's, can I get them to trust me that earning good grades is good? Can I get them to trust me that being a good person, like I'm getting goosebumps, like, cause it's real. It's they're not my son, but when for right or wrong, when I'm with them, I feel like they are. And I don't have a son. I have a great daughter, but I don't have a son gets to go in and learn wrestling. So it's helping others.
It's almost a cliche because you hear so many people talk about it, but wrestling, weightlifting, I think the best coaches use it as a vehicle to mold the athletes or the young men into good people.
Yeah.
You know, and if they become great wrestlers and if they become really strong in the weight room, then that's almost a bonus.
That's the bonus.
You know, and obviously that's our number one goal.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really, you use that as a vehicle to teach them. You know, I want to teach them how to work hard because that's going to carry over into every aspect of their life. If they can show up here on time and work hard 3 days a week, their entire high school career, I know they're going to have a shot at college or at their job or whatever they do because they're going to understand how to work with a team and how to work hard. I want to teach them how to be, you know, tough and strong, but without being an asshole. I always tell them, like, hey, you don't have being tough doesn't mean that you have to be mean or chauvinistic or these other things. I said, you want to learn how to be a good man so you can be a good husband and a good father someday.
Yes.
I said, so don't mistake being tough with being an asshole, because to me it's two different things.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I'm getting the kind of chills right now too. I've kind of lost track of my thought there, but yeah, I think.
Well, we're talking about our passions, you know. It's which is fun.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's fun to talk about, but it's almost hard to talk about. Sometimes it's hard to verbalize, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I'll tell you what, Ross. I know that kind of switching gears a little bit and talking, you know, more just about coaching, and I think I told one of the guys about this yesterday. But one of the things that I love about you is that when I first came to Ohio State with the RTC, I was essentially at that point a personal trainer. You know, I mean, I looked at myself as a coach, but not really the way I do now. I'd never operated within a coaching staff. I'd always just, you know, I was a businessman, I owned a gym, and I trained clients. I didn't understand the dynamics of how to operate within a coaching staff or within these coaching meetings or dealing with all these other athletes when it's only not my say. I have to deal with all these other egos and different things. So one of the things that you did is that even though I was an outsider, you never treated me like an outsider.
Yeah.
I felt like you really coached me up on how to be a coach, not the X's and O's of weightlifting, but the X's and O's of how to operate as a coach within a coaching staff. You were a huge help to me my entire time there.
I didn't know that. That's good.
No, that's why it's good for me to tell you that now, you know? But, so there was a lot that I probably learned from you directly and even just from watching you that you probably didn't even realize, because there was a lot of things that I did wrong early on because I just didn't know. And, I had never been on a coaching staff before. I didn't know how to, in a meeting, express my opinion without stepping on anyone's toes, understanding the nuances of it.
You and me both.
Yeah. but I think that there's a way you can do it. There's a way you can stand up for yourself and express your ideas, but still be diplomatic about it.
Yeah.
And I think that was something I kind of learned from you, because maybe, I felt like maybe out of a lot of guys there, you and I, our personalities were maybe more aligned than maybe some of the other guys. So it was easy for me to look at you and say, okay, Ross is an independent thinker. He has his ideas of how things should be done, but he also understands how to operate and deal within the framework of being in it's almost, it's like a corporate environment,
right.
So, but of course, if I got to pick, I like being the boss and doing things my own way now, right?
100%, 100%. We had some good talks back in the day.
Yeah, we did have some great talks. But anyway, I wanted to make sure I kind of threw that out and thanks you for all the help you gave me there.
Well, you made a comment that you may have done some things wrong. I would say you did a whole lot right. And a lot of the success that the RTC and Ohio State had with becoming a national championship team and a Big Ten championship team, and some of those guys going on to wrestle in the Worlds and the Olympics, that would, I don't know if would have happened without everyone involved, but especially you. You have, and I'm not just kissing your butt here because I'm on your show, but you have a contagious personality. You're not afraid to work hard and lead by example. And I think that you are a huge asset to what we all collectively were doing back then.
Well, I think it took all of us. It took all the pieces in place, with you being one of them. I think that I came in and, filled a need, and I made sure that I did what I could do to the best of my ability and help the guys where I could, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a collective effort. I think without myself, without you, without Jay, without any of those guys, Ohio State might still be looking at 0-team national champs.
Yeah.
But I think all of us, played a good role there, and I was happy to be involved with it. I felt like one of the things I learned from watching you as a coach is that I noticed you were always the guy that, hey, if someone needed to come in and needed extra work at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., if I'd be in there, doing a lift or whatever, you might be off in the corner with Miles or with Kyle, because they needed extra top work or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was necessarily on the schedule, but you were always willing to put in that extra work with those athletes. And I think that's what the good coaches do. They recognize who needs help, what they need help with, and they're willing to do it, basically do whatever it takes as a coach. Not just well, you know what, hey, practice at 2:30, so talk to me after practice. Maybe I'll help you then. Hey, if we need to get it in then, we'll get it in then, Yeah. There was a lot of early mornings that...
There was a ton of early mornings.
I would be over there, running the lifts or whatever, and you would have, the upper weights over there in the corner doing top work.
Yeah.
So...
college wrestling is a whole lot different than junior high and high school wrestling, for sure.
What do you think is... I already probably know the answer to this, but obviously there's so much bureaucracy and stuff you have to deal with at the college level. That's taken away when you run your own club and when you're helping with the high school team. But now you have the extra level of the parents on top, So what do you think is one of the hardest things when you're dealing with, high school, youth, junior high parents, and kind of managing, maybe their expectations and managing kind of the reach that they want to have over their athletes? Because it's not just their athletes, it's their kids. Right.
It's a good question with a hard answer. I have I have parents that have never wrestled, and they love their kids so much. They genuinely just want the best for their kids, but might not know what the right answer is. So it's just getting them to trust in that they can trust you. Some kids need to be involved more during the year. Some kids need to do a whole heck of a lot less than what they're doing. And every kid's different. And it's just getting them to, when they ask you a question, to trust what you're telling them and to have an open, honest, hard truth conversation. We've got parents that want More and more and more and more and more of everything.
See, I think that is one of the biggest problems with wrestling parents, especially youth wrestling. They think 3 practices a day are better than 1.
Yeah.
4 practices are better than 3. I've had to tell parents, it's about the quality. It's not always about how many things can we show up for in one day.
We've been dealing with it a lot, and I forget who said this. It might have been through a text from one of the U.S.'s world champs or Olympic champs, but it rung clear to me. It's like, you want your athlete, whether it's wrestling or anything, that when their main practice starts, they're excited and energized to be engaged in that practice. And when you go to too many things all the time, it just becomes you open the door, you go in and you do it and you leave. And you'll get more out of the actual workout if the individual is engaged and ready to work and wants to be there. And more isn't always better. And I'm a club guy. I support my family and make a living on this. And I try to keep it cheap for the families, but that's how I make my living. So it's almost like business suicide saying, don't come do extra.
Right.
Right? But
because there's plenty of club coaches that don't do that.
No,
they don't say, hey, you got to come to all this and you got to do privates today.
Right.
I've said to parents before, well, if you're going to their club practice, why do you need privates that same day?
Exactly. And no matter how much you like wrestling, that gets old.
Right.
Tommy and I were talking about it, and it's like, man, that second practice hurts no matter what age you are.
Right.
Like your knees are a little stiffer, your back hurts a little bit. And it's like, be fresh, be excited, go be the best person you can be in that practice. And if you're engaged, you're going to be learning, and it's beneficial. I think the only time I ever preach, let's get extra in, and I'm going to probably make a lot of high school and junior high coaches mad here, is we'll have kids in our club and then they turn into 7th graders. And they want to do the 7th grade wrestling. Well, Central Ohio Junior High wrestling isn't the most challenging.
And you're talking about as far as competing, going to the local tournaments or whatever.
No, I'm talking about practice.
Okay. Because
if you're in 7th and 8th grade, so like I have a few Hilliard kids. I live in Hilliard and I want to see Hilliard wrestling succeed. I have a few 7th and 8th graders now that do their school wrestling, and I think they should. The camaraderie, learning how to be a leader, learning how to be a teammate, the social aspect of it is awesome.
But they might be in a room with a lot of kids that haven't even wrestled before.
Exactly. And I see, and I'm just trying to be honest, not make anyone mad, I see more kids just do that for 4 months, and they come back, and it's like they haven't grown at all.
Right.
So it's like there's a few kids, the ones that I know love it, where I'm like, hey, do your practices, but at least one day a week you need to come to the GOATs or any other club you want to where you're getting challenged by kids that are at your level. Other than that, it's like find your club, find your coach, really enjoy practice. I'm on the verge. I've got probably a dozen kids right now that are going to be, if they love wrestling, once they get through puberty, they're going to be D1 wrestlers. I know it. But I don't have a magic wand or a crystal ball. I don't know which ones are going to love it. And I'm holding them back so hard right now where it's like, listen, you only need to practice 3 days a week. You don't have to wrestle 100 matches. Get challenged in these 3 or 4 tournaments. Go to some local tournaments and love wrestling. We're going to teach you good stuff. But every day you come in the room, you got to love it. If those kids, if we can get them through puberty, and that's usually at an age where they can start making their own minds up what they do. If they love it, oh my gosh, it's going to be amazing. No matter what high school they're at, it's going to be amazing seeing what they turn into.
Maybe it'll be one of those things like Rudis just did that documentary on Barger in the Walsh Jesuit dynasty. It'd be really cool if 10, 15 years from now, Rudis is doing a documentary on the Bishop Watterson program or the Crazy Goats. You know, I think it has the potential to be something like that. And Central Ohio needs one of those stories, I think.
Yeah.
To see a program kind of build up, from the ground up, to see some of these kids start as youth and really blossom and then, go on to the D1 level or whatever.
Well, it's funny there. I do believe in Central Ohio wrestling, and I do believe there's a lot of coaches and a lot of communities who care.
Oh yeah.
And they give a lot. And it's almost like you said, Jimmy being the unsung hero of, he's the guru of Central Ohio wrestling. He's produced more state champs than anybody. A lot of people don't know his name.
Right.
And I don't mind if I go down like Jimmy. Like if there's a documentary about Watterson doing good, I could care less. It'd be cool for the kids and their families.
Yeah.
But about me, I just want to coach good wrestling and stay in the background.
It's too late now. You're on the Wrestling Strength podcast. You're going to be famous.
No, it's Tommy. I'm helping out with the Watterson High School now, and he wants me to have a co-head coach title with our great coach Felix. And I want to coach practices, be there when they're wrestling, and let everyone else take the credit. Like I've accomplished what I've wanted to accomplish. But I guess it would be. I went on a tangent. Sorry. It'd be cool
fine.
if they did it. If we built it that good to where a documentary had to be made about it, that'd be cool.
Here's the thing, and this is something that I think about a lot, because part of my business involves leveraging the stuff I've done and I've accomplished,
right?
So that I'm able to, generate income through whether it's, my website or people want to bring their kids to me because I was the Ohio State guy or whatever it is. So I think that there's no shame in, kind of like, you say you almost want to be anonymous. You don't want any credit.
Yeah.
I think it's fine to take credit as long as it's not, you're not leading with that and you're only trying to, hang your hat on that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with like saying, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what I've been able to accomplish. And here's how I can help you.
Yeah.
But if it's, hey, if, someone kind of, struck lightning one time and then they try to hang their hat on that for the rest of their life, and that's a whole different story. A guy like Jimmy Edwards, who has this track record of, success and helping, kids win state titles and all these things, dating all the way back to you and Tommy and even before. There's nothing wrong in my mind with that guy being able to say, hey, yeah, you know what? I am that guy. And, here's what I can do for you, but part of it's a personality thing.
I couldn't agree more because I have no problem with other people doing it. Zero.
Right.
I just, in a sick, twisted way, I am in love with falling into that. I am responsible for your successes and failures, and I want that to be kind of private, where it's like the nights where I can't sleep because I can't figure something out for one of my 10-year-olds. And I see the disappointment in their mom and dad's face if they lost to someone they've always beaten or whatever. It's like, and then fixing that's enjoyment enough that's why I'm doing it. And part of why I said I'm a bad businessman is I don't lead with those things. And there's something inside of me that just doesn't want to. But I also understand if I tell everyone out there I helped coach Ohio State win a national title, that builds business.
Correct.
So that's where I struggle on. I don't have my own 14,000 square foot gym like you do. It's I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense or not.
No, it makes sense to me. I think part of it is, we've been able to build our business here at Max Effort and with Old School. A lot of it, we've been able to build it through social media. And this is something we talk a lot about. Social media has allowed us a vehicle to show everyone what we do, teach people. There's people around the world. There's club coaches in Russia that use my books to train their athletes, which is insane to think about, right? Yeah. I sold to like 21 different countries last year.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Mongolia, Russia, somewhere in Africa, I think Ghana, there's a team that uses my book. So anyway, the point is without social media, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
So I look at it as, we've been able to build a business. I've been able to impact people across the world.
Yeah.
So that's all a good thing. Now, if I was using social media just to trying to build myself up and make myself appear bigger than what I am, which is what a lot of people use it for.
Right.
They try to just use it as like a human highlight reel and half the highlights aren't even real.
Right.
Then I think that's kind of where the negative connotation is. So I think maybe, for someone like you who, you did, obviously we didn't grow up with social media.
Right.
This is all new. You do a little bit on there, but you're probably not super comfortable with it.
Right.
So even just at the bare minimum, being able to showcase what your athletes are doing and some of the stuff you've been able to accomplish in the past, I think that's like the bare minimum and would help you tremendously. So that's my business advice for you today. Don't be afraid to put
all the advice I can get.
Well, and look at it this way, you're not trying to do it just to grow your business, to make money, it's going to allow you an opportunity to help more kids.
More people, yeah.
You know, and if that's really what's at the root of why you're doing it, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you're not doing it just to stroke your ego or because you want more followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, because that's secondary. That doesn't really matter to you.
Right.
You know, it's going to allow you a vehicle to grow crazy goats, to impact more kids, you know, and hopefully, you know, help more. Maybe it's going to be some of those kids become state champs. Maybe it's just going to be some of those kids that learn how to work hard and be better humans.
Yeah, for sure.
And anything within that spread is all going to be a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you, man. I've watched you and seen you grind and fight your way in and put the time in. And it's like you were saying earlier, it's a dream. You get to do it with one of your best friends. Your kids are being raised together in the same building. And yeah. It's amazing what you've accomplished.
Well, I think obviously, you know, for me being involved with it, you know, and still, you know, being involved with the RTC, but even the years I spent directly at Ohio State, you know, training the team had a huge impact on my career, and I knew it would. So like when I first started down there as a volunteer, I would show up. Lou would let me put Reese and some of the guys through or whatever.
You had to start off by driving almost an hour just to show up.
Well, and with no pay for the first year and a half.
Exactly.
But I can remember telling my wife, I said, look, I have this opportunity. I have my foot in the door.
Yep.
I'm not taking my foot out until they kick me out.
Yep.
I said, so until Tom Ryan comes and says, you're not welcome here, I'm going to show up.
Right.
Because I'll never get another opportunity about this, you know, like this again. I'm just some guy. You know, I'm some guy that owns a gym out in Pataska. No one knows who I am. But the opportunity came, we'll kind of peel it back again, because of Tommy. You know, when I met Tommy in 2010, and I've told this story over and over again, but we'll touch on it real quick because I don't even know if you and I have ever talked about it.
Oh, we have.
But, you know, it was one of those things where he needed help getting ready for the trials. I was excited. I'd been a fan of Tommy all those years, and I took an opportunity to help him, you know, pro bono, of course, just for the opportunity to work with an elite athlete. I never worked with an athlete of that caliber.
Right.
And I did that for 2 years, and then that led to that next opportunity. So that's a really big takeaway for anyone that's watching is if you always focus on helping people,
yes.
If you always kind of lead with value of like, all right, how can I help these people become better? Whether we're talking about a 10-year-old kid or whether we're talking about Tommy Rowlands getting ready for the Olympic trials, if you always approach things with that mindset, it's going to lead to good things.
Yes.
And that's why, I'm going to circle back, why I said that I think you're a good businessman. In your head, you're not a good businessman, but because you do stuff for free and you focus on all these other things, but because you're always leading with value and helping people, that money comes back to you some other way. It may not come directly out of the pocket from that person that you're helping for free, but it's going to lead to something else. You know, just when you keep putting that positive energy into other people, it's going to come back to you.
Yeah,
I believe that 100%.
I do too.
So, well, I'll tell you what, that's probably a good place for us to wrap it up today. Ross, I really appreciate you coming out. And there is one thing that I always ask everyone when they come on this show. All right. So, and we, you know, it's maybe something we've touched on a little bit, but, you know, if you can, you know, because this is the Wrestling Strength Podcast, right? We didn't really talk about that much about the X's and O's of wrestling or about strength training, but I got to kind of tie it into that a little bit. If you could think of one thing when you were a competitor back in the day that helped you as a wrestler, it could be an exercise, it can be a workout, it can be some run you see, whatever it is. If there's one thing that you think that helped you on the mat more than anything else from a training perspective, strength conditioning wise, what was it? I know it's a hard question for me to really just throw at you.
Really good question. And I don't think there was just one. But the first thing that's coming to mind, it was the people. It was it was the help that was provided to me. I wish I could say like, oh, I had this great technician or I had this great, you know, but it was the love and support from my family, my coaches, my school, and it was probably a lot of tough love. It was probably a lot of tough love from those people saying, hey, if you, and this is where a lot of parents get confused. It can't start at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. I mean, you got to be at an age where it's like you are responsible for your thoughts and responsible for your goals. It was when I was old enough to say, this is what I want. I had people that were willing to give me tough love. I had people that on the days I didn't want to go hard, call me out.
And that's a hard thing to do as a coach or as a mentor.
It is so hard. But yeah, I think it's okay to set goals. I think it's okay to say them out loud. But if you don't have people that love you, that are willing to piss you off a little bit, it is very hard to reach them. So without getting too long into it, my dad was a cop. My mom worked for the state. I had 3 older brothers. They found a way to scratch and claw to put us all through Bishop Reedy High School, make sure we're going to church our whole lives, lived over on the west side of Columbus. And I got to an age where I saw the struggle, where when you're a young kid, no matter where you live, if you have love, you think you're rich. You think you have everything. Well, I got to an age where I saw the struggle, and I was luckily good at wrestling and around a good program with good coaches. I saw what it would take. I saw the high school team winning state titles and the guys that were winning multiple titles. I saw how they trained and what they did. So when I made my goal, it was not just to be successful in wrestling, but it was like, how am I going to be able to go get a college education and pick the school I want to wrestle for without asking my parents to sacrifice any more?
Because you were already cognizant of how much they had to sacrifice, even just to get you to private school. And
with 3 older brothers and to get, all that. Mm-hmm. And it was a fear. It was a fear of letting them down and saying, hey, I want to go to Penn State. Hey, I want to go to Ohio State. How are we going to pay for it? I mean, to this day, I can't believe I thought this way, but I was like, man, if I'm class president, as much as I hate doing that stuff, it'll look good to the college coaches. If I get a certain GPA, it'll look good to the college coaches. If I'm not out making trouble, and I win state titles, how could people say no?
Right.
And I don't want to call it a nerd that way, but I had good friends that would sneak out and go to parties. And I was like, there's no way I can do that to my parents.
I think it was a very mature mindset, and really you were able to see the big picture at an early age. Whereas I think a lot of kids probably in your position who were talented wrestlers, state champion level guys, would be able to say, coaches will look past that because I'm the man.
Because I see that a lot with 7th and 8th graders now that dominate through the youth wrestling, and they think they're the man because they're the best guy in their room, right? And they're the ones, when they're hitting puberty or going through puberty, that don't work as hard anymore, that think they have it figured out. And as a coach, it's one of my battles of how do I get through their head without just getting mad? Like, hey, I'm here to help you. I should not have to be saying, get in your stance better, work harder. Like, that's where me and Jimmy make a good match because we're yin and yang. He's the fun guy and can get through people. And I'm more the boring fundamentals. Hey, you got to work really hard and you got to do things right. Mm-hmm. And that's where he kind of helps me out a ton. But yeah, so that was a long-winded answer to a
super
really
long
good question.
Yeah, I mean, after hearing that, I feel like you might have a future in politics.
Why?
Because the way you were able to spin this into a huge story from a simple, from a simple question, it was good. Now, one last question. All right, and this one is good.
Oh boy!
If you could pick one thing, parents, they need to stop doing with their youth wrestlers, what is it? Whether it's a lot of coaches that have come on or guys I've talked to, they said, hey, you need to quit making your kids, run every day or whatever. So some of them said something specific. Other ones is, hey, don't focus so much on wins and losses. What is it? What do you feel like if you could just tell every parent right now, just be able to look them in the eye and say, stop doing this. You're ruining your kids. This needs to stop right now. What is it?
I'd probably say stop going to other clubs and go to mine. I'm just kidding.
See, you're turned into a businessman. I like it.
No, I'd say manage the stress levels, probably. Focus on growth, attitude, and effort, as cliche as that is, and not the results. But wrestling is a hard enough sport, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. There is enough stress there already. I read something Cael Sanderson said. Cael said like something about one of the worst things you can do to a young wrestler is to make them feel like they're going to disappoint you. Now I botched that whole quote,
No, but I get the
like,
gist of it.
like,
Yeah.
it's already hard enough what they're doing.
Right.
Now, if your kid's not trying, it's okay to have tough love and talk to them about, hey, you're never going to succeed without fighting harder. But just focus on letting them fall in love with the sport or not, and limit the stress, the outside white noise stress. There is stress on them already. Wrestling comes with adversity. It's not optional. There is adversity there, and they're going to find it. And sometimes it's better for them to find their failures and successes on their own without them feeling like they have to get in a car and just get murdered on the way home. Because it's no fun.
No
and like
fun.
me and you were talking earlier before this started, is if the person doesn't enjoy what they're doing, it's next to impossible for them to succeed. So stop with the damn stress.
I love it.
And that could be taken so many different ways, but it's like, and
I think the ride home is the perfect example right there. You know,
yeah,
like they already lost, they already got beat up, they already got embarrassed, whatever it is. Don't beat them up mentally on the way home.
yeah.
So I had someone else told me that same thing. They said, don't talk about wrestling on the way home.
It might have been me, because Tommy's dad and my dad, I knew whether they were together or just one of them. If I could get to the car, whether I did good or bad, if I could get to the car, the wrestling was over for the day. It's like, we're going to Wendy's, we're getting a Frosty, and we're listening to music, and we're doing whatever else. It's like if something needed to be said, it was said in the parking lot, it was said in the gym, and then we were back to being normal human beings. Like, keep it simple.
Mm.
And I don't know. With the youth kids, some kids have body awareness right away. Some kids have the aggression, like we were talking about, right away. Some kids are faster, some kids are stronger. Some kids are lucky enough to win at a super early age. It just comes to them. But as you get older, it gets harder. Everyone's faster. Everyone's stronger. Everyone's got body awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest hassles, that was wrong of me to say. One of the biggest challenges that I face with my parents is why is my kid not getting better faster? And it's like, your kid is getting better.
Right.
But he's not as fast as these 3 other kids in the club. He's not as strong as these 3 other kids in the club. Trust me. Keep it fun. Let them deal with the adversity of it. By the time they get to puberty, everything's going to even out. And your kid's going to have the advantage. That's what a lot of them don't understand. When our children have to grow up fighting for every single win, and they only win half the time, they're learning to fight through adversity. Adversity is becoming normal to them. It is the norm. When you grow up at 7 years old to 12 years old and you're winning everything and everything's easy, you hit puberty and all of a sudden, I was beating that kid by 10 points 2 years ago. Now I'm only beating him by 2. Well, that kid's big and strong now. That kid's been learning wrestling the same pace as you've been learning. He's just able to use his body the way you've been using it. So it's a challenge. Another long-winded answer.
No, it was an excellent answer. And it was perfect. I think it's a perfect place for us to wrap up. Ross, I really appreciate you coming out today. Appreciate your friendship over all the years and all the guidance that you were giving me that you didn't even realize you were giving me. But I definitely appreciate that. So where can anyone that's watching, where can they find out more about the Crazy Goats at?
Yeah, so we're getting ready to build a website. Another bad business guy. But we do have all our information on the Crazy Goats Facebook site. I post everything through my social media.
So is it just Crazy Goats?
Ohio Crazy Goats.
Ohio Crazy Goats,
yeah,
on Facebook.
That's it. And then we're going to build a website, and we've got some big things coming. We're getting ready. It'll be our second year of Freestyle Club,
Nice.
which we're hoping to be the premier location for freestyle for young and old. And our summer training will be coming up, and we want to help the community and hopefully make a living doing it.
No doubt, man.
So,
that's the dream.
I appreciate
right
you a lot, more than you know. And for anyone that watches this, if you want your kids to get strong, get out here to Dustin, man. He's 100% one of the best I've ever been around, and he's a good dude.
Thanks, Ross.
You really are a good dude.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, Ohio Crazy Goats on Facebook. Make sure you guys check that out. Ross, hopefully my kid gets back into wrestling next year. I'll be bringing him to your freestyle club.
Anytime you want.
We'll see. We're out.